Ron, at the beginning of the season, we kind of asked you what would define success for your team, and you said playing hard, finding some level of consistency, really learning what the coach were trying to bring in. I guess now, having gone through the season, what would you consider success for this year?
Was exactly that, Rihanna. I said it the other day that that we'll show up and we'll play hard, and I think that's important because when you do that, I think you pretty much tell everybody, hey, we're getting it. We understand what we need to. We're doing things the right way, and that's important. And I really appreciated that, from the way our guys handle things.
Hey, Ron, good afternoon. I know the season obviously just ended, but how do you go about starting to shape the quarterback situation with, a couple of guys on free agency, Alex, obviously, in his situation, whether he wants to play or not, and potentially the opportunity to add somebody in the draft or free agency?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is we have to basically debrief the season more so than anything else. So what will happen is we will get together tomorrow as coaches and we'll talk about doing our evaluations. I will visit with the owner at some point, whether it's tonight or tomorrow, and basically talk to him about my intent going forward. And from that point on, we'll start the evaluation process of our football team. And obviously the quarterback situation will be one of the topics of conversation.
Ron, when you look at having Chase Young on one side of the ball, who's going into his second year now, and Terry on the other side, who'll go into his third, just having two young captains like that, what does that do for you as you try and build this franchise?
Well, it tells us we got a pretty good foundation, and that's what's exciting about it. But to me, it's having all the rest of the other pieces as well. Because I think you start by your fronts, your offensive and defensive lines. I think those are important, and then you continue the building around them, and that is big. But to get back to it though. The quarterback is probably one of the most important things that we have to get done and get established. And again, as I said, that'll all be part of our process as we start going forward.
Matt?
Hey, Ron. Past teams have made the playoffs here in like 2012 and 2015, but they didn't make the playoffs the next year. You're someone who's sustained that success over a period of time in Carolina. I just kind of from your experience, what are the keys to doing that, and how can you see that applied to this group?
Well, the key to it really will be the way we come back and we approach the upcoming season. If we come back and we're fat and lazy, we're going to get the crap kicked out of us. It's that simple. So that won't be acceptable. And it'll be my job. It'll be the coach's jobs. It'll be our leadership's job in terms of player leadership to make sure we don't do that. That's the first step. The second step is making sure that we do a good job evaluating our current roster and improving it, and then evaluating our scheme and seeing what we're doing is, are we giving our players a chance to be successful? And then we'll go from there. I think that's the start. One of the things that happened, in the past was we were able to, look at what we did, evaluate what we did, approve upon it, and we were able to take the next step. That's the most important thing is, it's going to be what have we learned from our history.
And then Alex indicated to us that his calf strain was maybe a little bit more severe than let on or more complicated to deal with. Do you have any clarity there of kind of what he meant by that?
I think exactly that. I think it was probably a little bit more and it just took a little bit longer to heal up. And unfortunately, it didn't get a chance to completely heal because we needed him back out there. And I just appreciate the fact that, he went out and did what he did courageously. I really do. I mean, for him to battle through that was amazing. And it's just, my hat's off to him because, he's one of the most unselfish players I've ever been around.
Thanks. Sam, give it another try.
Hey, Ron, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Ron, would you like to hire a general manager this offseason? And if so, what would that role look like in this organizational structure?
Okay, so what's going to happen, Sam, is, again, at some point, either today or tomorrow, I will sit down and talk to the owner, and we'll talk about what my intent is going forward. And from that point, I'll have clarity as to what I'm going to do, and then I'll go from there.
And I know you said you were going to review kind of the football team top down, but are there any areas that stick out to you now that maybe you'd like to improve the most, I guess, going into the offseason?
I think us as a football organization can improve and get better across the board. So as we go through this evaluation process, we'll make decisions on things that we're going to change and things that we're going to improve on and things that are going to stay the same.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, going back to the quarterback situation, I know you're going to sit down and evaluate it, but I am curious, when you look at Alex Smith, he talks about having a decision to make if he wants to continue playing. When you see him, do you see a guy that can continue to be effective into the future?
Well, that obviously is really, in terms of his health, the only person that could tell you that is going to be Alex. And so we're going to go from there.
Okay, and then with going through a COVID season, how limiting was it? And look, in hindsight, how limiting was it for what you wanted to do? And maybe what are some examples of showing how limited it kind of made you guys and everybody?
Well, it was very limiting, just because one of the things that you always want to get is the instant feedback. And part of getting that instant feedback is being in the same room with everybody, being able to see reactions to things that are going on and that are happening. I think not being able to do that, being in person in terms of meetings, that limits you. I really felt it did. It was difficult. It really was. It's hard to talk. It's easier to show, I think. And so, just from everything from the way we had to travel to the way we had to meet, those things really impact you. I know we had to find ways to work around situations and circumstances that put more strain on people. It was a difficult set of circumstances, and hats off to everybody that achieved it, and hats off to our players, with only having 2 guys having gone on COVID, one being an IR player and the other one being a practice squad player too as well.
Thank you.
Ron, I know when you finished your treatment in October, you had mentioned January as the time where you would possibly learn if the treatment did what it was supposed to do. I hope I'm not getting too personal by asking, but how are you doing health-wise, and have you received any more clarity on that?
I'm doing well health-wise. At the end of the month, will be my big scan, the PET scan that I'm supposed to get. So, we're anxious. I'm anxious about that.
And do you expect any major staff changes?
No.
Or is that
no.
Hey, Ron. I know you just said you're going to debrief and figure out what to do moving forward with the quarterback plan, but I'm just wondering, with regards to Alex, did these last 3 or so weeks with him dealing with his calf injury, how did that possibly shape your thinking?
Well, again, we'll get an opportunity to go through this tomorrow and the next few days, and come up with our plan of action that we're going to use going forward.
Hey, Ron, I know you're a big theme guy, and I'm I've been listening to you, and I've been watching some posts from team employees. The phrase "on the way up." Yep. That's been used quite a bit, and I'd like you to define that for me, on the way up, and kind of what would be your mission statement in a sense for on the way up as you proceed to the new year and the new season.
Well, the big idea behind that is we got to the playoffs and everybody's excited about that. That's great, but that's not the goal. Okay. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. And so being on the way up is referring to the fact that we're still rising. We're still working to get to what our ultimate goal is, and it's like that old saying that the team that ended up on top just didn't, land there. They had to work their way up. So we're on our way up.
And from a fan's perspective, just monitoring social media and reading tweets, it's been really interesting of how the reaction has been. People saying, the most depressed they felt after a football game because it's been actually fun to root for a good team again and root for a fun team. It feels like, you're changing the culture, obviously, with the franchise, but in a sense, the culture is changing as well with the fan base, and they're starting to believe. Can you just touch on that a little bit and how that's turning it along with the culture of turning in a positive direction of the franchise.
Well, that's the whole idea. That's one of the intents. I got here, and you guys heard me say that, is that, we got to get these folks behind us. This is a great fan base. Historically, this is one of the best fan bases in the league. And as a former player and coach coming into here, whether it be old RFK or when they first started at FedEx, to have this fan base behind us is going to be a boost. But as I said, the only way to do that is to go out and give them something to cheer about. And to me, it starts with playing hard, showing up and playing hard, giving our folks a reason to show up, a reason to get behind us. And so if that's what we're doing, then great. That's what we're hoping for. That's what I believe our players want is to, could you imagine what it would have been like yesterday to have those fans there behind us and help us get a little momentum, and knowing when to cheer for us and when to boo the referees when they miss the call. Hint. So anyways, that was what is what I'm hoping that we can do as a football team, and that is to get these folks behind us again.
Thank you, Ron.
Hey, Ron, thanks for doing this with us all year. I just wanted to say that if this is the last time we chat for the season, putting up with us on Zoom and all that. My question, can you talk about Scott Turner's development, first full year as an offensive coordinator, and maybe how you saw him grow over the course of the year?
It was fun to watch. It really was. And I've been fortunate that I've got to deal with a lot of young coaches in my coaching career and watch those guys take steps and become really good coaches. And that's where I think Scotty's headed. He did a really nice job with us. We had to struggle through early on, not having OTAs and mini camp and a regular training camp to trying to get to know our players and then develop our schemes. And same thing for Jack. And I know Jack's a veteran coach, but he had to do the same thing. He had to learn our guys on the run. But to watch Scotty, know how or see how to use players, and how to load them up or scale back, that was excellent. How to attack and then adjust in a game, I thought was great. It really was. And there were a lot of good things. And, I just know there's going to be continued growth. So I'm excited for the future of our offense as well.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. You guys can skip me.
Heather. Okay. Hey, Ron, again, reiterating Mike's thought, thank you again for the entire season. It's funny when Scott just mentioned the fan that was upset. Actually, I heard a caller on the radio say it was the most excited he was after a playoff loss because he felt good. He felt good about the, end of the season loss, playoff loss. But you get the gist. In any event, I guess this is kind of, maybe it's an easy question. Maybe it's just broad. How will you remember this season with everything that's gone on? What are some of the key points and feelings and emotions that will bring up when people talk about this 2020 season?
How proud I am of these guys, of our players. I've been very fortunate. It's my 10th year as a head coach, but other than the 2014 team in Carolina that was 7-8-1, I think this team, I will remember this team probably the most fondest, just because of how resilient, how tough-minded, how much they went through, and how they were able to keep their focus on football. I got a chance to meet with most of our guys, a lot of our guys just now, and to have a couple of veteran guys tell me that this was the most fun they'd had, that, it was amazing how we were able to keep our focus on football, how good that was. This group, I will remember this year more for the guys, the players, than I will for any other reason, I think, because of how mentally tough these guys were. They went through a lot, and yet they persevered, and just how much joy they had last week. In terms of winning on Sunday, and then the whole week of preparation, the excitement was really cool. And as I get a chance to reflect, I think I'll remember the guys, the team, the players more than I think I will anything else about 2020.
And to that point, I mean, Brandon Sheriff came on and talked about the culture change and about you and said I absolutely love him. So when I imagine coaching, you want to win games, but it's about these relationships. So when you hear, and I'm sure that was relayed to you in your conversations in the locker room, when you hear a player said, I absolutely love him, how does that make you feel?
It makes you feel good because, you've earned their respect and their admiration, and their loyalty, and which means I appreciate that, but I also reciprocate that because, when you look at guys like Brandon Scherf that had a knee injury and came back in 3 weeks and played to the level he did, and that's impressive. That's a guy that's in it for the long haul. That's a guy that's in it for his teammates. Those are the kind of guys that you remember, that you appreciate. So that's really cool. It really is. When you get guys like Terry McLaurin and Chase Young, two young guys that want to be part of it and want to lead, that's impressive. So we've got a good foundation. We got to add on to it. We got to strengthen it. So as we go forward, we can continue to get better.
Hey, Ron, you've already mentioned some of those memorable moments, but if you can kind of like take us in the locker room, or if it's the meetings where we can't see it, is there one real big moment where you're just like, oh, I really like this team, like some type of story that you can share?
Wow. Gosh, I know there is. I know there's quite a few of them, and it was, I mean, it goes back to the Pittsburgh game, and just seeing the euphoria, that was an amazing thing. It really was. I mean, just how excited they were. And it was one of those things too, that they didn't shrink from the challenge. They rose to the occasion, and it really just kind of, it does something for you. The San Francisco game, going on a short week, going all the way out there, and then playing to their abilities. That was cool. So there were moments like that you just sit there and go, wow, this is something else, And then how they approached Dallas. I played for the Bears, and I thought that's one of the all-time greatest rivalries, period. But then to see the Washington football team versus Dallas, that's impressive. So when we won that game and just see that attitude, that's another one. So those moments, inside those locker rooms after those games, those are very touching moments because they're, and you're right, they're unfortunate you guys don't get to see that. But that's a pretty cool thing. It really is. And then last night, even after the loss, to watch these guys go around the locker room and dab each other up and hug each other and shake each other's hands and pat each other on the back. And that, that's a cool thing. That really was.
And then one thing, you said you had your final scan or another scan later this month. Have you thought about possibly doing anything about being maybe a spokesperson about cancer to fight against it?
Yeah, I have, and I'm hoping to get the opportunity. I'm actually working with somebody on something that should be pretty cool. So when it all comes out, hopefully you guys will get a chance to see it. But I do think that there is a need for it, and I'd love to advocate for it and help out.
Hey, Ron. Is there something about Alex that, beyond all these other things, the fit and the age and the injuries and all that, is there something about the leadership that's just going to be irreparable? I mean, you can't replace it. I mean,
no, you can't. I mean, there's an intangible that some guys have and possess, and Alex has it. Can it be replaced? Well, you're going to have to find a guy that has that same type of intangibles. And those guys are special. They only come around once in a while. And Alex has that type of intangible that, and I think part of it is because of the experiences that he's had in his life, the games that he's played, and obviously what he's gone through.
Does that complicate any of these off-season, decisions in the next few weeks and meetings and things?
I don't know. It's something we'll certainly have to look at and talk about. That's for sure.
Thanks.
DA.
Hey, Ron, I know you're 12 hours removed from the season ending, but given that you guys were for division, do you have some kind of thoughts about where you guys stack up with the other teams in the division going forward? Because you had a great season. You had some injuries, Dallas and Philly and Giants had injuries as well. Where you think you guys are going forward and how you stack up?
Well, I just know this going forward, we'll have the target on our chest because we're division champs. I think saying, where you stack up now is irrelevant to where, you're going to feel about it come September.
Yeah.
That to me, I think is really, where you sit there and say this, that, or the other thing. Obviously we would have loved to at least won one of the two Giants games. That's for sure. But, I still think, again, the way we played down the stretch, winning 5 out of the last 7, and then obviously getting into the playoffs was a big step for us, a huge step.
Why now?
Hey, Ron.
Oh, sorry, Dave. You can hop back in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was just a parochial weird question, but on the punt last night that Troy took into the end zone, I guess TV was saying that the ball actually did hit the Tampa player, I guess, in his hand warmer or something, and it should have been a fumble. Did they say anything about that to you during the game?
Nobody said anything about me. We were trying to see. I mean, we couldn't tell. We kept looking. I kept having guys looking, and whether or not he touched it, and we couldn't see it. And it's unfortunate, And then the next big debate we had was that based on the rule, if you possess the ball for a period of time, you can hold on to the ball and walk it in the end zone, and it goes back out to where it was first touched. So that much I heard. But when we asked and we were looking, we couldn't see it.
Hey, Ron, I know Dan Snyder said you were going to be consulted on kind of what the name change for the franchise is going to be. How confident are you of even going into next season with this name, given the brand that you and your team have put together as just Washington?
I'm confident in whatever, we have. That's something that's, that I'll hear from Mr. Snyder and from Jason as far as that's concerned. I mean, until we get to that point, whatever we're going to call ourselves, and it'll be, it'll be the Washington football team until then.
Okay, guys, we'll open it up. We'll take 3 more.
Ron, I know you're still evaluating, but what do you think? The defense had such a tremendous turnaround. What do you think the next step for them is in terms of this as a unit?
I think finishing off what we feel are the few pieces we need to solidify that group. We found out about a lot of our young players, and we have some ideas as to a couple of the positions. I think that if we can strengthen and improve on, we can be even better.
Hey, Ron, you took on extra responsibility this year in addition to being a head coach. Just curious, kind of having now gone through the whole year, what did you kind of learn about that extra responsibility, kind of essentially having these two, kind of having 2 positions?
It's a lot. And it's a lot of responsibility. It is. But it also tells you that you've got to have really good people around you. And I thought the coaches handled it very, very well. The thing that I really ended up doing a lot more this year than I had in the past ever was really managing. And I think that was a big part of it, was that I was able to find a groove in terms of managing the football side. And I thought that was something that I didn't expect.
Last one.
Wait, what was the feedback you got from the guys on Ryan Vermillion and the job he and his team did, particularly the guys who had known other trainers in their time here?
It was amazing to hear that from the first week all the way to the last week. Just listening to the guys talking about, man, it's different. The feel's different. The vibe is different. to God, this is great. Just being able to come down there and getting these things taken care of. To the other day, I was just asking a couple of guys about, hey, how's it going? All things considered. They said, Coach, all things considered, this is phenomenal. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, God, we were able to come in and, feel really good about being here and getting treatment and working our rehab program. So there was a lot of positivity coming from the players.
Time, last one.
Hey, Ron, given all that you had to deal with from, the pandemic to the, addressing social issues, the name change and all that, and your own, individual stuff, how much are you looking forward to a more normal off season and just getting back to just, I guess for you, hopefully just worrying about football?
Well, the best part too is not having to talk to you guys. Gosh almighty. You know what? I to be honest, I really do look forward to just normal, to just football. I really do. I'm excited about it. I hopefully things will start to settle down. We'll get the vaccine rolled out and we can slowly get back to normal. But I hope that, by the time we get into OTAs or mini camps, we'll be able to see each other in person and more. I said this before, and I do mean this. I do look forward to seeing you folks in person. I really do. And I think, working relationships are important in this business, just so we all have a working understanding of who each other is and just how difficult what we all do is. I mean, I get how hard your guys' job is because it's so competitive, and your push to get information is important in what you do. I get that, and I appreciate that, and I respect that. So to be able to get back to some sort of normalcy, I think is important. And for me personally, I really do look forward to it. I can't wait, because just being able to worry about football and 53 players and coaches and our operations people will make for a much easier life. That's for sure.